In South Dakota, invasive carp pose a looming threat to the state's coveted natural resources and native fish populations. Invasive carp have made their way up the Missouri River, but have been stopped by physical barriers in Yankton and Sioux Falls.
They're in the Missouri River until Gavin's Point Dam near Yankton. They're not above that dam currently. And then they're in the James River up to Jamestown, North Dakota. And then they're in the Vermilion and the Big Sioux Rivers up until Lake Vermilion and the Sioux Falls.
Invasive carp, formerly known as Asian carp, were brought to the U.S. from East Asia to clean commercial fish ponds in the 1970s. Floods allowed the fish to escape, and now they've slowly spread throughout the country's major river basins, causing havoc and ecosystem imbalances everywhere they go. The two types of invasive carp that are of most concern are bighead and silver carp, collectively known as big-headed carp. The State Game Fish and Parks Department is working with researchers like Dr. Allison Coulter from South Dakota State University to help prevent further spread.
Bighead carp and silver carp are feeding at the bottom of the food web. They're eating things called plankton and zooplankton. Those plankton and zooplankton are food items for a lot of our young native fishes. So if silver carp and bighead carp are then eating all of this food, then there's less available for like our young walleye each year.
In places like the Illinois River, bighead and silver carp have reached incredibly high abundances and become very problematic. In some places, there are over 80% of the biomass in that river. Across the country, billions of dollars are being spent to prevent invasive carp from increasing their range. The Great Lakes is looking to protect its $7 billion sport and commercial fishing industry by developing preventative technology to block potential entry points. The money is necessary because when invasive carp take hold, they are almost impossible to remove. Like the situation in the Great Lakes, researchers and wildlife officials in South Dakota are focused on protecting areas that invasive carp haven't managed to get to yet. In particular, Lake Oahe, where a robust native walleye and smallmouth bass population supports a fishing industry that contributes over $270 million to the state's economy.
We're looking a little bit at flooding and how that might allow carp to spread into new places, as well as where the carp that we see in South Dakota are originating from. So we're looking at their movement, and we're looking at the chemical signatures in their bodies that can tell us about what waters they originated from. And then we're also looking a little bit at habitat quality of different places in South Dakota for carp. So that lets us know if a particular water body might allow carp to kind of live and reach really high abundances there.
The results of this research may help inform policy or conservation decisions in the future. Hannah Mulligan, a graduate student in the department, is looking at the live bait trade in her research and has identified how invasive carp may be able to spread through human interventions.
The purpose of the project was to assess the risk of silver carp and bighead carp introductions via the live bait trade. So live bait is commonly used in recreational fishing, and it's either wild harvested or farm raised. However, if harvest occurs in an area where invasive species are established, they could be caught as unintentional bycatch, transported to a bait shop, and then sold to an angler. And then if that angler decides to release their live bait fish instead of properly dispose of it, it could potentially introduce those invasive species beyond their current range and where they're not present. And environmental DNA is one method to monitor these invasive species. Fish species are constantly releasing this genetic material in the form of mucus and scales. So we used this basis and we sampled 112 bait shops in 5 different states within the Missouri River Basin. The most concerning thing is we did have 2 positive detections that were recorded outside the current range of big-headed carp. The 2 positive detections that we recorded were above Gavin's Point Dam, which carp are not currently present above that dam. There are a variety of different reasons that could result in a positive detection, but it's still a risk because that means that the DNA was present somewhere within this pathway.
Here are a few prevention tips to keep in mind before getting on the water next time.
Be familiar with regulations regarding live bait fish. So it's illegal to release live bait fish that did not originate from a water body.
If you think you've caught a silver or bighead carp, I would definitely keep it. If you happen to have your phone with you, I would try to verify or do a little image comparison to check if that's what you have. And then I would call either your CO or the phone number on the SD Least Wanted website.